Yeah.
I guess not.
No? We'll wait for the DA to get here.
I just have some preliminary objections for the
When we get down to the objections, if you take one by one, we'll decide on them.
Okay. I mean, essentially they're for the record,
Okay.
you know.
All right.
But at least I want them just noted for the record.
Stephen K. District Attorney.
Okay, written hearing for Susan Atkins, ATKINS, ADC number W08304. Date of hearing is January 20th, 1993. The time now is approximately 1:50 p.m. We're located at the California Institute for Women. Legal status of the prisoner: she was received on June 3rd, 1971. Term started May 28th, 1971. The prisoner was received in prison pursuant to Penal Code Section 1168 for a violation of 187 PC, first-degree murder, concurrent with prior term, Los Angeles County case number A267861, that's count number 1. Further, the prisoner was subsequently received on December 18, 1972 for a violation of 187 PC, first-degree murder, 7 counts, concurrent with prior term, Los Angeles County case number A253156. It's counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. The controlling minimum eligible parole date was October 6, 1976. This hearing is tape recorded. In order that we get an accurate transcription of the proceedings, I'll ask for voice identification. I'll ask that everyone in the room give first and last name, spell last name, tell what your function is for the day. And when we get around to the prisoner, we'd like you to add your CDC number. I'm going to ask Mr. Nielsen to start, and we'll go to his left.
Jim Nielsen, Nielsen, Commissioner, Board of Prison Terms.
Carol Bentley, Bentley, Commissioner, Board of Prison Terms.
Manny Guadarrama, Guaderrama, Commissioner, Board of Prison Terms.
Stephen K., Deputy District Attorney, Los Angeles County, KAY.
Patricia Tate, TATE, next to kin victims.
Good. How about over here?
Peter name,
Spell last name.
Anyway,
And your function.
camera operator.
Paul Veronese, that's Paul, Veronezzi, sound operator.
Steve Fournier, FOURNIER, Victim Services.
Linda Deutsch, DEUTSCH, reporter with Associated Press.
Doug Brockner, BRUCKNER, television reporter.
Officer Sloan, SLOAN, correctional officer.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry.
Deborah Frazier, FRASCR, attorney for the inmates, Susan.
Susan Atkins, ATKINS, W08304, prisoner.
Okay, the purpose of today's hearing is again to consider your suitability for parole. In arriving at a decision, we will consider the commitment offenses, your prior criminal and social history, as well as your behavior and overall programming since your commitment. We reviewed your files and prior transcripts, and you have an opportunity to make corrections and clarifications as we go. If any time during the proceedings you have any questions about anything that's going on, don't hesitate to stop us, and we'll try to answer your questions. The way this hearing will be conducted today, I will be discussing with you the life offense, your prior criminal and social history. And then we will go to Ms. Bentley in my immediate right, and she'll discuss with you post-conviction factors, not your adjustment institution, particularly since your last hearing. Then we will we'll go to Mr. Nielsen, the far right, and he'll discuss the parole plans. Following that, I'll poll the panel and see if they have any questions. Then I'll ask Mr. K, representing the people of Los Angeles County. If he has any questions, he'll direct those questions through the chair. And if you desire to respond to those questions, you respond back to me.
Yes, sir.
Following that, your attorney will have an opportunity to ask you questions directly. When we get done with the questioning phase, we'll go back to Mr. K, and I'll ask him to make comments concerning your suitability for parole. Then your attorney will have an opportunity to make a statement, and if you want to address the panel, you can do so following your attorney. We also have a next of kin here today, the sister of Ms. Tate, and she'll have an opportunity to make a statement. If she decides to make the statement, she'll be the last one to speak today. Then we'll recess. We'll clear the room. The panel will stay here. We'll discuss your case. And when we reach a decision, we'll call you back. Okay, you are afforded certain rights to timely notice, availability of files for review, and a right to present relevant documents. And I'll ask your attorney if she's satisfied that your rights have been met up to now.
Up to this point.
You also have a right to impartial panel. Do you have any objections to any of the panel members you see before you?
No, sir, I do not.
Today you'll receive a copy of the tentative written decision. The decision becomes final in 60 days after it's gone to Sacramento for review. A transcript and a copy of the decision will automatically be sent to you, and you have the right to appeal within 90 days if you're dissatisfied with the results of today's hearing. Today, you're not required to discuss the life offense with the panel. You're not required to admit your guilt, but the panel does hold as true the findings of the court. You came in here convicted of murder, and you're going to leave this room convicted of murder. Our charge here today is to determine whether you're suitable for parole or not. I have a documents list here. I'd like Ms. Fraser and Mr. K to take a look at it, make sure all parties have the same documents. That's exhibit number 1. Fraser, are you satisfied you have all the reports?
Yes, I have all
I'm
of
satisfied too.
Thank you. Okay, do you have any objections?
Yes, I have just a few objections that I'd like to take primarily for the record. The first objection I have would be the presence of what I consider to be an illegitimate news show, namely hard copy as covering this. I consider them tantamount to the National Enquirer covering this. The second objection that I have...
Let me go that one first.
Okay.
They've cleared their presence here through the proper channels, and they are authorized and they have constitutional right to be here.
We'll note that for the record. Thank you. The second thing that I will object to is the introduction of any letters that have been solicited by any party through the National Enquirer, the Globe, or the Star. I see that as designed to incite the public in my client's case and to essentially undermine the integrity of this board in considering my client's suitability for parole in terms of bias. So to that end, I will object to any introduction of letters. Further, I have not seen or reviewed any of those letters, and so before any of them will be introduced, I will request that we have an opportunity to review.
Here's we're all in the same boat. I haven't seen any of those letters either. So to my knowledge...
They are not in our possession, so they will not be used.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No, we don't plan on bringing them here today. They apply to all 5 defendants, and they will be at a later time brought to Sacramento and delivered to the headquarters of the Board of Prison Terms.
That's fine. Thank you.
I'm going to request from this board that we limit Mr. K's statement to the facts of this case as presented at the trial that my client was involved in, and not the facts from any other trial from any other co-defendant in this case.
Okay, he'll hopefully will be following the materials that we have here today. And anything that hasn't been submitted already will not be considered.
Thank you. And last but not least, I would ask that this board not to consider any pictures of the crime scene or pictures of the victims that have not been sent to us prior to that. Enough of it has really been said about this case, and I don't wish to have this board's integrity undermined by inflaming.
I did not see any photographs in the C file, and to my knowledge, we don't have any in our possession.
We're not planning on submitting any.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is your client going to be responding to our questions today?
Yes.
Okay, would you raise your right hand? I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give before this panel will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to read the statement of facts from the hearing held on July 6, 1979. And that was at your, I believe, your initial hearing.
Mr. Broadhearing, before you proceed, may my client and I have the glasses?
Certainly.
Officer, could you get 2 glasses of water for the prisoner?
Statement of facts. Referring to case number A267861 on July 25th, 1969, the prisoner and crime partner, Robert Kenneth
Beausoleil.
Charles Manson, Bruce Davis, and Mary Bruner, together and separately went to the home of the victim, Gary Hinman, to solicit money from him. The victim apparently failed to satisfy the request. He was kept prisoner for a period of time, cut and stabbed repeatedly. The cause of death was ascribed to a stab wound in the heart. The body was discovered on July 31st, 1969. Under case number A253156, referring to counts 1 through 5, these concern the murders which occurred on August 9th, 1969 at the Polanski residence located at 10050 Cello Drive, Los Angeles. As to count 1, Abigail Ann Folger died from multiple stab wounds to the body. Count 2, the victim, Frykowski, death was caused by a gunshot wound of the left back and multiple blunt force trauma to the head. He was also stabbed. As to count 3, the victim, Stephen Earl Perrett, death was caused by multiple gunshot wounds. Count 4, Sharon Marie Polanski, cause of death was multiple stab wounds of the body. And the victim in count 5, Jay Sebring, cause of death was multiple stab wounds. As to counts 6 and 7, of Lino LaBianca and his wife Rosemary. These killings took place on August 10th, 1969 at their residence located at 3301 Waverly Drive, Los Angeles. Lino LaBianca's death was ascribed to multiple stab wounds to the neck and abdomen. This refers to count 6, count 7, Rosemary LaBianca. Death that was ascribed to multiple stab wounds to the neck and trunk. Count 8, conspiracy to commit murder, refers to the prisoner and crime partners conspiring to kill the victims in the first 7 counts. This has been gone over a number of times. You've had a number of hearings here. Is there anything that you'd like to say about your involvement in these murders for today's hearing?
Yes. I've attempted on numerous occasions at these hearings to explain my involvement. At my last hearing, I asked the panel members to please understand that my statements are in no way an excuse. I am not trying to excuse my participation. They are not... there's absolutely no justification. There is no way that I can justify my participation or excuse it. So I preface my statements with that and ask that you keep that in mind. I would also like to state that it is almost impossible to explain to competent, intelligent people that occurred 23 years ago from a now cognizant, aware, conscious position. And I ask that as I state what happened, you keep in mind that it is almost impossible to understand insanity from a sane point of view. And that's what I was living on, was insanity. I had, through my own actions, been involved in drug abuse for approximately a year to 2 years prior to my having met Charles Manson. I got involved in drug use and drug abuse, I think, as a product of being just young, with no direction. I had left home at 18. I'm not sure whether the panel members are aware or not that I came from a very, very dysfunctional family. Again, it's not an excuse. They are just statements of fact. I came from a dysfunctional family of 2 alcoholic parents. I suffered sexual molestation as a young child from a family member and from people surrounding my family. When I left home at 18, I was extremely angry, extremely vulnerable, directionless, and couple that with my own involvement in drug abuse and my own need to be loved and accepted from almost at any cost. At that point in time, I became very, very susceptible to the times. And I ask that the panel members take into consideration the times, not as an excuse. But Charles Manson, he was an extremely charismatic individual. He was attractive to me in that all my experiences up to that point led me to believe that there was absolutely nothing left for me to do, and here was this person that seemed to offer me some hope in a somewhat hopeless situation. And I know that might sound very strange to you, that somebody like Charles Manson would present hope, but he did to me at that time. I have stated during the trial and through the years that I was in love with him at the time. My comprehension and understanding of love today is not. I was not in love with Charles Manson. I was caught up in needing somebody to meet my needs, and he seemed to meet my needs. And I misconstrued my need to be that of love. I don't think when I met Charles Manson and the people that I was involved with that my intent or my purpose was to end up spending the rest of my life in prison or having 8 innocent people dead. That was not my intent. I think that there was a culmination of circumstances and situations and emotions and people involved that brought me to the homes of the people that died. Again, there's absolutely no excuse. I take absolute and complete full responsibility for my actions. And whatever that entails, whatever punishment, whatever my life is to be is a direct result of that. I willingly, knowingly, and fully take responsibility for that. I cannot change what happened, but I do ask that the panel members try to, if it's at all possible, differentiate between fact and fiction. I said and spoke several different stories between the grand jury and the trial. There were several things that I said at the trial during the penalty phase of the trial that were in fact not true. I said what I said at the grand jury was the truth. And I want once and for all it understood that what I have been accused of doing and what I actually did are 2 different things. I sit before you a convicted murderess. I understand that. I was convicted by a jury of my peers of participating in horrible, gruesome crimes. Nothing will ever change that. Nothing will ever bring back the victims. But I'm asking that you believe me when I tell you I did not kill anybody. I did not by my own hand kill any human being. I was there. I participated. I did nothing to stop what was going on. It is inexcusable behavior. It is something that I live with every day. It is something I will live with every day for the rest of my life. During the penalty phase of my trial, I had stated, after consulting with Charles Manson, his attorneys, and my co-defendants, I was asked by Charles Manson to take the heat off of him, off of my co-defendants, and to state that I did things that I did not do. And I did that. I was still under the influence of Charles Manson during my trial. And during the penalty phase of my trial, I had stated that I had stabbed Sharon Tate when in fact I did not. And I ask your indulgence in that if you were to read the coroner's report, if you were to read the police report, all of the stab wounds of all of the victims were made by the same weapon. And it was not the weapon that was found in the house, which was the weapon that I had that I lost in the house. It almost seems pointless to me to try to make this point. It's like, what's the use? I've been convicted. People believe I killed this woman. Does it make any difference whether I did or I didn't as to my suitability for parole? And I think that I think the truth, that I hold to the truth dearly today, that I live by the truth today. That no sense, I could never feel remorse unless I faced the truth. I was incapable of feeling remorse until I really looked at the truth. And I really, it's very risky for me to say what's in my heart. My lawyers, you're telling me not to cry.
You covered an awful lot of material. Let me ask you a couple of questions, then you can continue on.
Sure, that will help.
Were you present at the when all these murders took place?
Yes, I was.
All of them?
No, I was not present at the
Of the 8
lobby.
that you were convicted of?
I was present when Gary Hinman died. I was present at the Tate House. I was not present in the home of the LaBiancas. I was in a car, and I left the residence of the LaBiancas before they were killed.
But you had been there?
I had been
the same
there.
evening?
Yes.
And what were you doing when all this killing was going on?
When Gary Hinman was being killed, I was there after he had been wounded. I went to a store and got I think hydrogen peroxide and Band-Aids and stuff to help clean up his wound, because I did not know at that point in time that he was going to die. I had a suspicion of it, but I didn't know. And again, I was not, please understand, I was not in my right mind. Doesn't again, excuse it, but I was not thinking clearly.
Were you present when he died?
I was outside the house when he was dying. I was in the kitchen when he was being stabbed. I had stated at my trial for his death that I had killed him when I in fact did not. And I made that statement because I was exhausted. I was asked to make that statement and I wanted to get out of the courtrooms. I had already been sentenced to death and I didn't see any point in going through a trial. So I had admitted to killing Gary Hendon when in fact I did not.
Who killed Gary Hendon?
Robert Rosalie.
Okay. Now the other murders, the Tate residence. You were there.
I was there.
And what were you doing when all this?
When I was told to get into the car and go with Tex Watson, I did not know exactly what was going to happen. I was told to do what Tex said to do. And so I got in the car and did just exactly what Tex said to do. When he told me to climb over a fence, I climbed over a fence. When he told me to hide in the bushes, I hid in the bushes. When Stephen Parent was killed, I was in the bushes and I was watching. When I was told to go into the house, I went into the house. I was then told to go into the back room and see how many people were there, and I went into the back of the hallway and saw how many people were there and came back and told Tex Watson how many people were there. At one point I was told and instructed to tie up Wojciech Bykowski, and I tied him up with a towel. And at one point I was told to kill him, and I was incapable of doing it. I had raised a knife to do it, and I could not do it. And at that point in time, Wojciech Bykowski knew that, and he then jumped on me, and he and I got into a struggle, and I started screaming for help. And when Tex Watson came and took him off of me, I was told, Tex was screaming at me and told me to watch the other woman that was there, and that happened to have been Sharon Tate, and I sat in front of her until Tex came back. And then he...
When you sat in front of her, what were you doing? Were you holding her hostage?
No, I was just sitting in front of her and...
She's trying to get away?
No. She was tied up. I believe she was tied up.
Did she say anything to you?
Yes.
What'd she say?
She asked me to let her baby live.
What'd you say to her?
I told her that I didn't have any mercy on her.
Was she physically hurt at that?
No.
Just tied up?
She was just tied up.
Okay. Any others? What were they?
Abigail Folger had run out of the house. J.C. Brain was lying on the floor. He had been shot.
None at all?
None.
Who was the leader?
Tex Watson.
Were any of the females there in a power of position? Position of power? None at all? I'm going to just refer to you. You already talked about this, and I'm just curious. In the probation officer's report, it's page number 8. It says the defendant commented with some bitterness that she was not even present at the La Bianca killing. Nevertheless, she was convicted. I killed Sharon Tate. I don't know why I killed her. I was on acid. Whenever someone tells me not to do something, I do it. She said don't, so I did. As far as she recalls, the reason for going to that particular location was to help get Bobby Boussalet out of jail. Why didn't you take responsibility for killing La Biancas if you took responsibility for killing Sharon Tate? I mean, you very emphatically denied that you had any involvement with La Biancas.
Because I wasn't in the house. I never entered the house at La Bianca's.
But in this case, you just told us she didn't kill Sheriff Tate.
That's right.
But I don't understand why you take credit for it then. I understand you've been told.
Again, I'm asking you to understand that when I made that statement almost 23 years ago, 22, 23 years ago, I was still under the influence of the drugs, even though I hadn't been on drugs at the time that I made that statement for some time. If you understand anything about drug abuse and the psychology of drug abuse, that it stays with you for a long time. Again, I was still very angry. I was still very much devoted to Manson and to the family, as I had understood them to be at that point in time. And I wanted to be a viable member of that. And I knew what had transpired, and I had guilt over what had transpired, but I had buried that so deep because I just didn't want to face it. I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to deal with it. And I used to hear Charlie in my head over and over and over again tell me things like, when you're in jail and people pick on you, you be big, you be bad, and you be mean. So much so that everybody will just leave you alone. I was very frightened. I had nobody, no support mechanism around me, and I remembered that when people would question me as to why I was in jail, all I knew is that I had to somehow convince people that I was big, I was bad, I was mean, leave me alone, stay away from me in order to survive, because I thought I was going to die in prison. I thought I was going to die in jail. I didn't know any other means of surviving. So I said things to people in jail as a defense mechanism, and I said I did things that I in fact did not do, because that's how I was taught to behave when you're in jail. That's why I said what I said. That's why I didn't take responsibility.
What happened? What'd you do after all the murders had taken place? What'd your group do?
We had stayed at Spawn's Ranch, if I remember correctly.
You went immediately back?
I went back to Spawn's Ranch with Tex Watson, and the way Spawn's Ranch was set up, there were like movie fronts. And I went into one of the rooms, and Tex went in, and he was talking to Charlie about what had happened, and I went into the room directly next to them, and I remember there was a mattress there, and I remember Tex telling Charlie what occurred, and I got sick to my stomach, and I passed out.
Okay. Did you take any property from the home?
I personally didn't know, and I don't remember whether, I have no memory of whether there was any property taken, but personally I didn't.
Okay, is there anything else you would like to say about the crime? I'm sure there's going to be more questions later on.
I would that they'd never happened, and I can't change the fact that they did. I would give my life if it could never have happened.
How old were you then?
21.
I want to go to your history. As far as arrest record, you have, it goes back to 9/12/66. You were arrested Salem, Oregon, for possession of concealed weapon, receiving stolen property.
Yes.
What was the disposition on that?
I was put on probation. I was found guilty and put on probation for a
What
period
kind
of
of-
3 years.
What kind of weapon?
It was a small handgun.
And how old were you then?
I think I was 18.
And then on 9/29/66, you were arrested in the U.S. Marshal in Portland, Oregon for Dyer Act.
Yes.
And did you steal a car?
No, sir, I did not. I was with two gentlemen who had.
And how did you happen to be with that?
One of the gentlemen, Albert's son, left a job that I had in San Francisco and got in his car and went with him. I thought I was in love with him. And on the way between Sacramento and the Oregon border, I was told that I was riding in a stolen car and that they were both on the lam. I had no idea what on the lam meant, and when I asked what on the lam meant, I was told that they were both ex-convicts. They were on parole and they were running. And I, at that point, asked if I could please be let out of the car. Clifton Talafero, who was also in the car at the time, they stopped the car. He was driving. He stopped the car. And he pulled over to the side of the road, and he stopped the car, and he said, "You can indeed get out of the car, but if you get out of the car, you might not live before we drive away. So you have two choices. You can risk being shot in the back because you know too much about us and you can go to the police, or you can stay in the car and go with us." I chose to stay in the car and go with them.
And later on, you were arrested and charged with the theft of the vehicle. All right. On 4/21/68, you were arrested in Ventura for reproduction of a driver's license?
Yes, sir.
You pled guilty of a $10 fine. On 6/22/68, South Ukiah, you're arrested for possession of dangerous drug with a fire.
Yes, sir.
And what did you get out of that?
I believe that I did 3 months in county jail. And I was again put on probation.
How old were you in 68? That was
And when?
68.
I was 20.
On 6/4/69, you're arrested for Los Angeles for violation of probation. You're released to the Mendocino Sheriff. 6/7/69 in South Ukiah, violation of probation. On 8/16/69, Los Angeles Sheriff's Department for grand theft auto. No disposition shown. What was the disposition on that one?
For what?
Auto theft. Grand theft auto.
I don't know whether they dropped the charges on that. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
That was when they had issued the search warrant for Spahns Ranch.
Oh,
And
okay.
Search warrant
Right,
was
and
found.
I was taken to county jail, Los Angeles County Jail, held for, I believe, 72 hours, and then released.
So you're born in San Gabriel, California.
Yes, sir.
And the second child and only girl of Edward John Atkins and the former Jeanette Jeff. Family moved to Santa Clara County, and it was there where you grew up. It's alleged that both parents drank heavily. Because of this, your father changed his occupation frequently.
Yes, sir.
While the mother lived, both parents worked and were able to provide an adequate, solidly middle-class standard of living. Despite this, there was much internal strife in the family, both between the parents themselves and with their children. After the mother died of cancer when you were 13 years of age, the
I
family...
was 14 at that.
The family broke up, the father staying away from the home for extended periods of time,
Yes, sir.
and the children shuttled from relative to relative in various foster homes. By then,
Excuse me, I was never placed in foster home.
never?
No, sir.
Any member of your family?
I lived with my aunt for a while.
Okay.
And
Anybody else in your family live in foster homes?
No, sir.
No. I see you left high school when you were 18.
Yes, sir.
Did you finish high school?
No, sir.
What grade were you in?
I was in 11th grade.
Did you ever finish up?
Yes, sir.
You went to San Francisco where you started working in a magazine agency, but quit because of undesirable conditions. You held various jobs, house cleaning, babysitting, working as a waitress, and just traveling around. Most of this period was spent in San Francisco, where you frequented the Haight-Ashbury Tenderloin and Broadway districts. It was during this period that you apparently met Manson and decided to join in and travel with the family. You had little contact with your family since coming to Los Angeles County, and you lived in the communal agreement on Spahn Ranch in Chatsworth, except when living on the desert. You never been married? But,
Before that?
Yeah.
No, during that time I had not ever
okay.
been
Are you
married.
married now?
Yes, sir.
You had one child?
Yes, sir.
Zizo? Fletch?
Yes.
He was born on October 7th, 1968. And where is he?
I don't know. The state of California took custody away from me, and he was adopted.
He was adopted.
Yes, sir.
We're going to turn to Stephanie now. She'll be discussing your progress since you last.
Yes, we're basically going to just go through what's happened since your last parole hearing in December of 1989. I wanted to check with you because basically you've been disciplinary free since 82. However, there were a couple of 128s that I would like to have you explain. The most recent one was in 1990, and that's failure to report to your education assignment.
Yes, I had the flu.
But aren't you supposed to get a...
If you don't, the rules and the regulations in this institution, according to the medical department, is if you do not have a temperature or fever of 100 or above, you do not get a medical restriction really. The medical department ran its department during 1990, and I was literally too sick to get up to go to school.
Even though and they based that just because you didn't have a temperature?
Because I did not have a temperature of 100.
Okay. And then we had another one in 1989 that was just before your last parole hearing, but I noticed the date that it was put in the file would not have been at that parole hearing, and that was, again, failure to report to education assignment and data processing.
Again, the same thing, sick and capable of attending school.
Okay. So those are the only violations that you have in your file since your last hearing date.
Excuse me, I have in my file 2 other 128s that she had in the documentation of the prison. Sent me. One was she received a 128 for actions in the visiting room on 7/27/92.
Excuse me. That has been removed from my C file per an appeal.
No, well, that wasn't removed from my file, and also.
Wait, hang on. Hold off on your comments until I get finished with this.
Okay.
I'm going what is now currently in the C file and what we also have in our chronological report, 2 separate things, and there are no further disciplinary violations listed that we have before us. I wanted to get into some of the, you're still participating in the vocational data processing, or you did during this time?
I completed vocational data processing.
Okay. You completed 40 hours, and then you successfully completed 40 hours of training for trainers as a facilitator for the Breaking Barriers program.
Yes.
And you participate in the Breaking Barriers program.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And now, are you a facilitator in that program?
Yes, I am.
And tell me what that has meant to you.
Oh, that's one of my joys. I'm able to encourage people to get in touch with what it is they really want in life and helping them to learn how to do that. And it's unfortunate that most people, they might want something, but they don't know. They don't have the tools to acquire that. And in this kind of an environment, there are women who repeatedly have behavior patterns that cause them to do things that maybe they really don't want to do in their hearts, but they don't know that they have any alternatives. And as a Breaking Barriers facilitator, I'm able to show them that they do have alternatives, give them the tools to make goals, to set goals, and then show them how to fulfill those goals through education.
And when you participated in this program, did you set goals for yourself?
Yes, I did.
And are you working through to obtain those goals? Okay. You've received some chronos, a thank you from Reverend Johnson for assistance in moving to the new Interfaith Chapel. You've been commended by Officer C. Carter for efforts in assisting to expedite the level of cleanliness and maintenance necessary to maintain the flu apartments. What are the flu apartments?
Those are the family living unit apartments, and I believe since I utilize those apartments as part of a member of this community, it is also my responsibility to help maintain those apartments and make sure that they are kept clean for other families that go back there.
Okay. And you attend the Lifers Orientation meeting?
Yes.
How often do you...
The Lifers or long-termers organization meeting as often as I can, which is not as frequent as I would like to, because their meetings meet at the same time. I have visits with my husband.
Okay, and then you also were commended by Chaplain Johnson for the beautification of the CIW project? That was that the planting and...
Yeah, the grounds surrounding the chapel were in great need of care, and so I went out and I planted flowers and planted grass and just did what I could to help.
Okay. You participated in New Beginnings?
Yes.
Yeah. What did that program in?
New Beginnings is victim services oriented. It took me 3 years to get into the program. I had to wait 3 years to be able to participate in that. And in that, I am also facilitator. I go over to the reception area, reception center, as new commitments are coming in, and we have an orientation where we show them videos from victim services on the effects of crime on victims of crime, and we help raise the awareness level of the cost of crime to the victims.
Okay, then you've been participating in AA and NA. When did you start really being involved in AA and NA?
I got involved in AA and NA in 1984, and I was removed from close custody because AA and NA was an evening activity up until 1984. I was not allowed to participate. I went to AA and NA because I was told to go, and originally I was told that it was a requirement, so I went. I think it was maybe a year after I went to AA and NA that I really began to get involved in it and began to follow the 12 steps.
You started this in 1984?
In 84, and about 1985 I got involved in the 12 steps and started really listening to what the 12 steps were. I don't think I did any of the 12 steps until maybe 1986 when I met a sponsor. I found somebody who would sponsor me from the outside as a panel member, and she and I sat down. She was able to come into the institution, and we sat down and I did my what they call fearless moral inventory, and where I admitted to God and one other human being the exact nature of all my faults, and became chairperson, I think, in 1985 or perhaps 1986.
Yes.
Involved in it and served.
At the board hearing in 1989, you indicated you were not attending because it was an absolute waste of time, that you didn't feel it was necessary to go and sit and listen to the same stories week after week.
What had happened was in about 1987, 88, I got very disillusioned with AA because I did listen to the same stories over and over and over again. And I left it, and I thought, the way I absorbed AA is that you take the 12 steps and you live them, and you take it to the people in your community and you offer it. And I had thought that in giving the 12 steps away, I would be able to maintain my own 12 steps, that sitting week after week was not the best way to go. And I didn't think it was a waste of time. I thought there was more to do.
But you did testify at that time that you thought it was a waste of your time.
I don't know that I said, did I say it was a waste?
I think, as I recall that.
Maybe I did. And the parole board again encouraged me to go back, and I was defiant. I did not want to go back. And I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I said, I'll go back. And I didn't go back with a happy attitude. I did not want to sit every Wednesday night and listen to the same thing over and over again. I'll be really honest with you. I didn't want to go back. And I went back. And I have been...
So now, when did you start back?
I started back. It took me almost 9 months because they had changed the policy to AA and they have a waiting list. They only allow 75 inmates in AA, so it took me about 9 months waiting to get back involved.
And as I understand here, at this facility, they have 2 different programs. They have one
There's
that...
4.
Okay.
There's Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, CODA, and Al-Anon.
But then I understand there's a separate 12-step program, too?
There's indeed a 12-step program, and I just finished 12-step program, I think about 3 months ago. I went through 12-step program, signed up again for it. And I'm pretty much convinced that there's something there for me.
Okay.
For a while I thought, well, I'm not drinking, I'm not using drugs, what's the use? It's kind of like somebody who has cancer, if they go into remission, why go get chemotherapy over and over again? That's the kind of philosophy and thought pattern that I had, was that it was a waste of time because I'm not drinking, I'm not using drugs, nor do I want to. So why go sit and listen to people talk about how they...
But it's a lot different.
Yes, it is.
Tell me, what did you use when LSD?
During the commission?
Yes, or prior to your...
I started drinking when I was 18.
And what did you drink?
Grasshoppers, because it was a sweet drink.
A lot?
A lot. Kahlua. Anything that was sweet. Singapore Slings. Any of the sweet drinks. And I began to realize I was doing the same thing my parents did, and I hated what my parents did. And I hated what alcohol was doing to me, and I got involved in drugs. And it doesn't make any sense. But I got involved in drugs to get away from alcohol. I was introduced to marijuana by two sailors.
Did you smoke a lot of marijuana?
Yeah, I did.
And for how many years did you use?
From 1966, late 66, until my incarceration.
Okay, and then you used
I
LSD.
used LSD. I used methadone, which is pure speed. I used bennies, which is another form of speed. I used cocaine. I only snorted it one time, but I did use it. I used hashish.
So at the time you were using all these drugs, were you also involved with alcohol? Or
No.
Okay. But you do agree that you're an alcoholic?
Oh, yes.
And what about, are you a drug addict too?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the
I
first...
have an addictive personality and struggle with that a lot. And though I'm not doing drugs and I'm not drinking, I smoked for many years and I had to put that addiction away. I struggle with coffee. I know coffee's not good for me, and yet I drink coffee, you know. So I struggle with that, and I do use the 12 steps.
Okay, and what's the first step?
To admit that I am powerless over alcohol, I am powerless over drugs.
And have you come to accept that and believe that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not easy, but yes.
Okay. You were also involved in building a new U.
Yes.
You got a certificate for that. What is
Building a new a prison fellowship, which is headed by Chuck Colson, came into the institution, and a friend of mine asked me if I would like to go, and I told her, sure, I very much believe in God, and thought that I would go ahead and go. And it was a 2-day seminar, weekend seminar that I participated in, like a Bible study and seminar to encourage people to trust in God.
I have a certificate.
Yeah, you should have.
I saw the certificate in the files here. And you're married. You got married in '87. Is that correct?
Yes.
How did you meet your husband?
My husband had read 2 books. He had read Helter Skelter, and then he had read my book, and he was curious as to how somebody could make such a change from a person who would do what Helter Skelter depicted to somebody who could then confess Jesus Christ as a personal Lord and Savior. And he wrote to me out of curiosity, and I was very, very impressed with his letter. And after my first marriage, I didn't write many men. In fact, I didn't write any men for about 5 years. I didn't have anything to do with any kind of a relationship at all. I needed to get in touch with me.
Is it after your first marriage? Or you were married before then? Or while you were... Your counselor, Mr. Salcido,
Yes.
has indicated, and this was prepared for this hearing, the documents from the previous hearing have been considered and the information appears valid. He indicates since your last appearance before the board in 1989 that your behavior has essentially remained the same and that you have been continuing in AA and NA. And that he goes on to indicate your auditory chronos that we have gone further, he indicates that you followed the recommendations from the last hearing by attending self-help groups and remaining disciplinary free and working towards becoming responsible for your actions through personal growth. He does indicate, however, based on the seriousness of your commitment offense and the nature of the crimes, that you continue to be viewed as a high risk of threat to the society if released at this time. And also notice the high notoriety status of public interest in this case. And then when we get to the psychological report, which was very extensive, the psychologist indicates that you have made substantial progress during your over 20 years of incarceration. While the changes during the first decade of incarceration were drastic and covering a wide range of behavior and emotions, your changes in the third decade of incarceration are more subtle and more difficult to assess. He further mentions Dr. Armstrong's 1989 assessment that the subject of much notoriety and evaluation, and this seems to be the most difficult part of your present situation to overcome. In other words, it's especially difficult for you to improve yourself and deal with your past, as any maturing process requires to become more insightful, composed, and self-possessed in the light of public scrutiny. He says the interview resulted, in fact, I should look, is this, oh, yes. Dr. Klebel is...
Klebel, yes.
Klebel, okay. The interview resulted in the conclusion that inmate Atkins has made progress in accepting her part in the perpetration of the crime, in her guilt and remorse about her crimes, and in trying to understand what got her into the lifestyle and resulted in the horrendous events of the crimes. But there is another factor preventing inmate Atkins' further improvement. It is the extraordinary pressure resulting from those notorious and unprecedented crimes that makes it difficult for this inmate to further change and improve, especially when considered together with her personality characteristics.
I'm not sure exactly what he means by that.
Well, I think what he's trying to indicate to you, that, and I got this feeling throughout the whole psychological report, is that you're trying very hard while you're in the facility to and let me get back.
Me mistrusting
the
you,
others,
or other
yeah,
people mistrusting me?
The others relate to her presenting suspicion and mistrust, authority problems, and a difference in moral standards compared to normal responses. These are some of the things that came out in the testing. I'm referring to the bottom of page 3 and the top of page 4.
Oh, okay.
And then again, it goes on to indicate that you're overcompensating and attempting to overcome the present situation with elevated levels of activity and attempt being positive at all times. And under the discussion part, as pointed out above, inmate Atkins needs to learn to react less to the scrutiny of the public and to focus on her own development and maturation process. Additionally, this focus will help you to develop better relationships and become a less driven individual. He further indicates that violence potential outside a controlled setting at the time of your crime was extreme and much greater than average, and indicates now that it is substantially decreased. So, Mr. Chairman, that completes.
And I'll call Mr. Nielsen to discuss parole plans.
Your parole plans are best discerned from the 85 and 88 transcripts. I'll piece those together a little bit, and then maybe you can offer some additional information. Basically, as far as a system of support, you have a stepmother, Brother Steve, with whom you maintain a continuing relationship. That is correct?
Yes.
Brother Michael, there's been no relationship since a letter was sent to him in '84 and was returned.
They contacted me through my counselor, and based on my brother Michael's behavior, I have decided he's not the type of individual that I'd rather have in my life.
And this behavior was as it's evident to you in the letter he sent you.
No, he didn't send me a letter. I wrote him.
I see. So this was based on what he told the counselor.
My decision to not have him, I'm sorry.
He initiated a contact with the counselor, is that correct?
Just this last year, yes, sir.
And he said something to the counselor
No,
that was...
he just gave my counselor his phone number and asked me to call him. And so I called him. In 1984, I wrote him to confront him after going through years of therapy as a victim of my brother's who sexually molested me, to confront him. I never received a response from him at all about my past. My history has been put out there sufficiently, and I want nothing to do with it, period. And I made a decision that since Michael could not communicate with me, we could not resolve. I attempted to make amends with him. He was not willing to make amends. He wanted nothing more than to exploit me. I decided he was not the type of an individual, brother or no, that I wanted in my life.
And this occurred in the context of a phone conversation or conversation?
Over 2 telephone calls. I had called him. And my younger brother, Stephen, had also been in contact with my brother Michael. In fact, my entire family, my brother, my sister-in-law, my grandmother, and my stepmother have all pretty much asked Michael to just leave us all alone.
Michael was the initiator of this sexual abuse, then? Not
Yes,
Stephen, but Michael.
Yes, Michael's my older brother.
You've clarified that regarding Michael, so as far as you're concerned, he's out of your life.
He is out of my life.
But Stephen and you remain close, is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the stepmother?
My stepmother, she is incapable of coming down to visit, but I do call her frequently, and we are in contact with each other.
And your grandmother also?
My grandmother is 94 years old, and not doing very well. But I do have contact with her. She doesn't remember a lot. She remembers she has a granddaughter named Susan, and that's about all she remembers right now.
The probably best support then that you have would be from your husband.
My
is that
husband
correct?
and his family, yes.
James, and you were married in 1987.
Yes, sir.
And I note that our files are replete with a lot of desires of confidentiality from all parties of any interest in this
Yes. For his,
matter.
yes.
I mean in terms of victim side as well
Yes.
as yours. I gather that generally remains a condition today as far as parole plans.
Yes, sir.
You desire certain confidentiality.
Yes, sir.
But it could be stated that parole plans include these family members that we've mentioned.
Yes, sir.
And
I have a job.
and you have I've read about what seems to be firm job offers, although because of the concern for confidentiality, there are no letters, but there are references.
Right.
And your counsel in the last hearing said if under oath he could, would provide that.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And the area of your expertise and ability is in computers and programming
And word processing.
and word processing.
Yes.
So that would remain one of your goals upon being released.
Yes.
And also for the record, that if Miss Atkins, upon her release, would like to come work for me, I certainly could use her, and I will pay her.
Well, that will be considered a firm on-the-record job offer.
Yes. And I'm back in word processing, and they do offer 2 extensive paralegal courses, transcription courses, which I'm availing myself of presently, and will be hopefully applying to 2 universities that I attended here in the institution for a paralegal license through having done the courses. I don't think it's ever been done before, but I'm going to attempt to see if I can get accredited as a bona fide paralegal in the next year.
Commissioner Bentley has referenced the recent psych reports, and they are throughout your file over the years, mentioning different factors that you have to various degrees dealt with in therapy and self-help. You spoke with some enthusiasm right now about breaking barriers. As far as a support system, do you see any need for other kinds of therapy or support in free society.
Absolutely. I think it would be very unwise of me to think that I could step from a situation of incarceration for anywhere from 2, 3 to 4 decades of incarceration immediately into a free society and expect myself to acclimate automatically. I know I will need counseling. I have a therapist who is willing to work with me, work with my husband, who on an outpatient basis for counseling, that the world as it exists today is not the world that I left 23 years ago. Should I ever be allowed to re-enter free society, I'm sure it will be even markedly changed from today at that point in time, and I am going to need assistance. I attempt to, on a daily basis, maintain my contact with the world through news and magazines and education to know what's going on out there, but I have no delusions of grandeur that I can walk out here tomorrow and not go through some changes. I know I'm going to need help.
The recent psych report, and I'll want to ask some questions about it later on in the hearing, speak about normal person, and you're striving to be that. As to the notoriety that necessarily visits this crime and your participation therein, have you come up with any strategies to deal with that in free society?
Well, first of all, I don't think I'm going to walk out there and live under my maiden name. I will take my husband's name, as is my right as his wife. We do not plan on being famous people. I don't want to give interviews. I don't want to write books. I just would very much like to pick up life and move on from there as a private, law-abiding citizen of this country. I'm not sure that normalcy, as I understand, I think I'm a normal person today, but I don't think that the public, I don't think people who view me through the eyes of society looking at the crime view me as a normal person today. And that's the quandary I'm in. Dr. Cobell and I talked extensively about how in the world do I sit when I have people scrutinizing me and I know my heart's motives are right. I know my morality is intact. I know my ethics are intact. But I have people who look at me with disdain, who look at me with bitterness, who look at me with hatred, justifiably so based on the events of 23 years ago. But they're looking at me through a telescope of time instead of looking at me today. And that's where my frustration is. If people could just see me and know me, and I have people that are capable of doing that and that do that and who reinforce and support me in being a normal person. I have friends